health and fiscal implications of coronavirus are well known, but sport is getting hammered in all this. Joining me now for the latest on sport and the latest on cancellations is Sky News host Tim Gilbert. Timmy, thanks for joining us now. We saw Cameron Smith come out in the last 24 hours and suggest that the NRL should immediately cease to produce games, to play games. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, nothing against Cameron. Good evening to you, Gleeso. Nothing against Cameron at all, and I can understand his position, but to be honest, I can definitely understand the NRL's position and the Commission's position that they want to keep the competition running. I mean, this isn't a sport that is cashed up to the eyeballs. It's a sport that needs as much help as it possibly can get. We saw an impassioned Peter V'landys, asking for federal government support. I don't know how much of that they'll get. But look, what's going to happen is they're going to try and get this. They'll play round 2 this weekend with no crowds. The biggest problem for the NRL is obviously the New Zealand Warriors, and there's 3 options here. There's an option where the competition is suspended because they can't play, and you may, for some other reason, have someone else at another club who gets sick. You could have the New Zealand Warriors stay in Australia, and that's problematic, of course, as well. I mean, these guys only came for 1 game, so that means that they're staying away from their families. So many of those are going to want to come home. There's another suggestion at play here that what the New Zealand Warriors will have access to is a whole stack of players who aren't contracted to any other clubs, and that they will ease them into the Warriors so they can fulfil their TV obligations. This is the NRL going forward. Look, it's a difficult one. I don't know how they're going to do it. My gut tells me, or the feel I've got, is that at some point they're going to need to suspend the competition for a certain amount of time. I just can't see all these chess pieces moving in the direction that they want.
Well, Timmy, respectfully to both you and of course Peter V'landys and Todd Greenberg, I think it's inevitable that they'll have to cease, close down the competition. I think this particular crisis is escalating quickly, and I think ultimately they're just, that there'll be a player who will get it unwittingly, pass it on to someone. So I think they should bite the bullet now. But I completely understand the commercial considerations. I not for a minute do I not think that they've probably, they're acting cautiously right now because there's a sliver of hope that they continue on. But I don't think they'll continue.
Yeah, and
look,
it does make you wonder, doesn't it? Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
It makes you wonder across the whole spectrum of things, whether it's rugby league, whether it's business, whether it's schools, whether it's anything that is being closed down, shut down. It can only ever be a Band-Aid option, can't it? You can only do it for a certain amount of time, and then everything's got to try to get back to normal. And you've got to say, well, we had a real crack at trying to slow it down, but now we're at that point, we're at breaking point where we need the world to start getting back to normal, and we're going to have to cope with the consequences because, look, we don't know how long this piece of string is, but there is going to be a point where they'll have to just step in and say, well, we all have to take precautions. We're all going to have to continue to take those precautions, but we've got to move ahead.
The biggest show on earth is planned for mid-July. Of course, I refer to the Tokyo Olympics. Now, they've suspended the, the flag, the torch carry earlier today, but there is still a big question mark around whether or not the Tokyo Olympics will go ahead. I see Trump was suggesting a couple of days ago that it should be postponed, but the sports minister, the Tokyo sports minister, very quickly discarded that and said, right now, we'll proceed. What's your gut on this, Timmy?
Oh, look, the heads of government in Japan are just all over it. They are so desperate for it to run. And look, you can see it again. You can see where they're coming from. The amount of infrastructure, the build, they've been heading towards this date in 2020 for a number of years. It is the biggest thing in world sport. It's one of the biggest events in the world calendar. They've got all this infrastructure in place, from venues to to vehicles, all these automated vehicles. They've got accommodation for athletes and administrators. They've got this whole city preparing for these 2 weeks. So I can understand why they, as the number one investors, number one stakeholders in the Tokyo Olympics, want it to run. but you can't run if every other country says we're not coming. That's going to be a massive problem. So the Japanese government, even the IOC might say we're going to run the Olympic Games, but what happens when all these countries say, well, we're not sending our athletes, we're not coming there because we don't want them to bring whatever is there back home and to make the pandemic worse. So, look, it's a very difficult one. I can't see it running to time. I cannot see it running where the schedule is. I think they're going to have to ping it to the back end of the year or to next year because of those very reasons. We saw for other reasons in Moscow and LA, and there's been other Olympic Games where we've seen boycotts for various political reasons, but this would... where are you on this? Do you see where I'm coming from? A lot of countries will say we're not going to come.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Oh, I think, this is the greatest crisis to confront the Olympics since the Second World War. I think it's inevitable that they'll have to postpone or delay. Their heart's in the right place. They put so much work and effort into this, but, the way things are progressing, the way things are escalating, I don't think they're going to have any choice.